Welcome to Belief, Being, and Beyond with your host, Granddaughter Crow. Hi, everybody. Granddaughter Crow here, and we have another episode of Belief, Being, and Beyond. And this time we have a wonderful individual who is showing us how to connect with our intuition, maybe not necessarily as something untouchable, a gift that only a few have, but more of an embodiment practice using your intuition to be able to do it every day. We have Ebony Banks with us. Say hi to
Mhm.
everyone, Ebony.
Oh, hi everyone. I'm so excited to be here and to share like all the things that I have experienced and lived with intuition and what it's taught me.
She is a mystic, a survivor, yes, a writer, an author, and an embodied teacher. As an intuitive coach and mentor, she helps people deepen their intuitive abilities by reconnecting with their five senses, transforming everyday experiences into powerful inner guidance. And I am so excited about having you on the show. Ebony, it's just amazing what you do because I think that in a world that we want to be psychic, and so we go to crystal balls and we go to the tarot cards and we go to, which is great. I don't think you
Hmm.
have a problem with that. But
Mm-mm.
you're kind of like, oh, let's bring it a little even closer to home. Could you talk to us a little bit about the basic
Yes.
foundation of intuition embodied with the five senses?
Yeah, absolutely. So the way that I've learned to understand it just through my lived experience is that intuition is really a part of our natural human design. It is the part of us that connects to our spirit. You know, we're both physical and non-physical beings, and we're so focused on the physical aspect that connects to our brain as our primary form of intelligence. But our non-physical aspect also gives us, I think, even more intelligence than our brain. And to me, that non-physical aspect is our intuition. You know,
I
they
love
both give us information and but in very different ways, you know, but because we're just so overwhelmed with physical reality that we ignore our other kind of intelligence that is non-physical, which is our intuition. And and connecting it to the senses, you know, because I'm someone who's clairtangent, I've understood that all of the clairs, well, most, five out of the seven, directly correlate with our five primary senses. And that's like not a mistake, you know? Touch, taste, hear, smell, and see correlate to five of the seven clair senses. And that's because that is kind of the bridge, that's the vessel that we access those senses through. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. So, five senses. Go roll through them one more time a little slower for me. So
Oh, sorry. Yes.
you've got
Touch,
touch,
taste,
taste,
hear,
hearing,
smell,
smelling,
and see.
and seeing. And so
Mhm.
then what would the correlating clairs be?
Yes. So for touch, the companion clairsense is clairtangent, which I think of as one of the three lesser known clairs. Most people know clairvoyance, but they don't know all the others. And those who do know others, they don't know these three. So there's clairtangent, which means clear touch. Taste, there's clairgustance, which means clear taste. Smell, there's clairolfactance, which is such a weird word, which means clear smelling. Hearing is clairaudient, which some people have heard of that one. That means clear hearing. And then seeing is clairvoyant, which is probably the most popular of all the clairs, and that means clear seeing.
I love it. And then there's two more I know.
Hmm.
One is claircognizant.
Yes,
What
which
is
means
that?
clear knowing.
Clear knowing, like that
Hmm.
time that you just kind of know, but you don't know how you know, but you know.
Absolutely. Yep.
And
And every
what
single person has had that experience, you know?
I love that. And we talk
Yeah.
ourselves out of it sometimes. And then what's the seventh one?
The seventh one is clairsentient, which means clear feeling, which is also an experience that a lot of people have all the time. Like you can feel if someone's staring at you, if they're looking at you too long, if they're, you can just feel like people's presence around you. So, yes.
I
I'm of the
love
belief everyone is clear something because we are all having these experiences mostly subconsciously because people aren't aware that they don't think about it as intuition. They don't think about it as a spiritual form of receiving information and intelligence. They don't think about it this way. And so unfortunately, because they also don't develop it, because it's there for us. We just have to learn how to use it and understand it.
I love that. Quick little story. I
Yeah.
really got to know myself, and in a minute, I really want to talk about how is somebody supposed to understand if they're just beginning, which one they might be more than another, or that.
Yes.
But it was really kind of funny because I too am a person who does one-on-one sessions and have been doing that for a long time. And I was down at it working out of a shop, and I'm
Mhm.
really, really conscious with the clairsentient and the clairaudient and the clairvoyance.
Right.
And I get a lot of gut checks and that kind of thing. And somebody said, "Oh, are you, clairtangent?" And I'm like,
Yes.
I don't think so. And so then I sat down, and this one lady who wanted a reading, a session with me, she just came right in,
Wow.
said, "Can I have your hand?" So I offered her my hand. She
Mm-hmm.
put a wallet in there, and she
Mm.
says, "What do you feel?" And it was so wild. This was my first, wow, I'm doing this and I didn't even know. It
Mm-hmm.
was like I had to close my eyes, and I just felt like it felt like these pictures started coming in, and I'm like, whoa, I see a restaurant, and I see this, and I see
Yeah.
we're at breakfast, and I hear music, and it came through so clearly.
I
And
love
I had
that.
no idea that I had that gift until it was brought to my attention, and it was really, really cool. And you're right, that is one that, I mean, how do you know how to, if you have that or develop it? And I think that one of the things, I used to go get my nails done and my hair cut at the salons. The
Mm-hmm.
older I get, Ebony, the more sensitive I get.
Mm.
I don't want strangers touching
Mm.
my fingers and my hair. I've got select spiritual people who come and
Yep.
do my hair for me because I pick up too much. Like, I don't want to know about what your life situation is because you're doing my
Totally.
nails. And they don't want me to know about their life situation
Yes.
because you know what I mean?
Yes. Wow. And hair is like antenna in a way? So hair is actually very sacred. We have to be really, really mindful of like who we allow to be in our hair in general. So
I love that. Get them out of your hair in
get them out
general.
of your hair. Yes, you have to have, not everybody should be touching your hair.
How would somebody be able to identify what Claire they might be,
Mhm.
and how?
Yes, that's such a good question. So, um, the clairs are similar to our five primary senses in that you can have more than one. Just like I'm looking at you now, I'm hearing you now, and these things are all happening at the same time. They can happen at the same time. So it's not like you only have one. Most people have multiple, but there will be one that is more dominant for the person, like yeah, I think for me, I say clairtangent is more dominant, but I experience clairsentient a lot, just like it's just a big part of my everyday life. And so is claircognizant. And before I move on, I want to share too with clairtangent, it's different from the other clairs because the touch triggers clairsentient and clairvoyant, right? So like when I'm in a session with a client and I'm touching them, that's why when you were talking about like all the things that were coming to you, that's because touch was triggering those things. So you probably saw visions in your mind's eye and you probably just automatically like felt things too, right? Because that's how it is with my clients. That's how I get information from them because the touch triggers all these things for me. So if I don't touch them, I don't see things in my mind's eye like I do when I do touch them. So I just wanted to like share that. And clairtangent that is really specific to clairtangent. The other clairs don't trigger each other in the same way.
See, I
Um,
learn something new every day.
yes. Yes. But in terms of how do you know which one is most dominant for you, it's
Yeah.
really about bringing like as much awareness to yourself as possible and paying attention to how your body is responding. Because I process intuition through the physical body, through the senses, obviously. And so it's really about paying attention to how your body is responding because it's always giving us cues and signals all day long. We're receiving cues and signals, but we don't pay attention to them. So
Right.
I think of it as, the cue and the signal is like your intuition's way of saying like, hey, pay attention. Like I have information for you. It's like the hello. And so once you pay attention to your body's cues and signals, you can see what you're responding to. Is it, sound, which is it touch, taste, hear, smell, or see? Like which one of those things are you responding to mostly when it comes to like getting information, is that a good, did that
Absolutely.
answer it for
Absolutely.
you?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I think that with gifts, and I want to get your take on this, Ebony, because
Okay.
you've been working with a lot of people and studying this and writing a book. I really want to say
Yes.
check out Ebony Banks bodywayintuition.com. Follow on social media, Insta, TikTok, the same at Bodyway Intuition.
Thank you.
Now, my question for you is, I'm gonna have to cut there because I flew off the handle and then I can't. Give
It's
me a
okay.
sec.
You're
Give me a
allowed.
second. Because I was like, oh, this is great. And then I was like, where did my thought go? I actually might leave this in because it's just silly. Um, what was my question? Oh,
Mhm.
so I was going down the line. Oh, got it. So here's my question, observation, and I'd love to hear your take.
Yeah.
Sometimes, in my lived experience, I just kind of was like, I could see and hear things, but I didn't know that other people couldn't see and hear things
Yes.
to the degree that, so I felt like all natural. And
Totally.
I remember being in corporate America and, realizing that I'm gifted, wanting to shut it down, long
Mhm.
story. But I was like, somebody would walk past my office and I'd be like, hey, how's the move going? And they'd stop and
Mm.
they'd look at me and I'd say, well, aren't you like moving? And they were like, nobody told me. No, nobody, I haven't told anybody that. How do you
Mm.
know? And I'm like, damn
Mhm.
it. How come you just looked like you were moving to me, like you were
Mhm.
moving houses?
Mhm.
And it's not like, and so are other things. Do you find that a lot of people who have these gifts don't realize that they're gifts until they start like going compare, contrast with others? Or
Hmm.
what do you think about that?
That's a good question. I think generally speaking, people pacify their ability to experience these things, because like I said, I believe everyone is having these kinds of experiences on a consistent basis throughout their life, right? But they don't recognize them. And so because they don't recognize it, they're just like, it's not a big deal. It's not a thing. When it is a big deal, it is a thing, And so I think it's different for different people. I know for me, I had a hard time like accepting this part of myself. For a really long time, I thought I was weird. I thought people would think I was weird. I like asked myself, like, am I crazy? Like, do other people like hear and know like what I'm hearing and knowing? Is this so I went through my own little journey of that. And for a while, I too didn't realize other people didn't know and hear and see things in the way that I did, but once I did realize that, oh, this is not something everyone experiences as often as I do, because it's happening to me like it's such a of my life. It's happening all day, every day. Um, I didn't realize other people didn't, it wasn't happening for them in the same way. So I had to like go through a whole lot of checks and balances in myself just to like make sure, like, am I healthy? Like, what is happening here?
Right.
And then I just came to accept that I am. When I learned I was clairtangent, I learned that accidentally. I was not looking for it at all. And so that experience for me, I was like, okay, I'm done. I'm done. I can't pretend this anymore. I can't like hide. I can't diminish it. Like, okay, I get the message, universe. You want me to own this part of who I am. I'm done like trying to belittle this,
Can you tell us that story? Would you share that story of how you accidentally found one of your most powerful gifts? Because I love this.
Yes, it's so wild. It blows me away. So I had been going to a Reiki master's house just for regular spiritual events. I had a relationship with her and she would have all kinds of people coming over to her house and I just loved her. She was like a godmother to me. And so at one of these events, I decided to get a service of hers because she offered all these different services. And so I thought I scheduled, something else to be done. And on the day we scheduled it maybe 2 weeks before the actual event. So the day of the event, I show up at her house for it and she's ready to attune me to Reiki. And at that time, I knew what Reiki was, but I really was not interested in being like a Reiki practitioner or anything.
Right.
And I think I had scheduled an appointment. I thought I'd scheduled it to like have my chakras cleared or something, some other energy work.
Yeah.
So because I had so much respect for her and she was prepared, like she went through whatever she had to go through to like to prepare herself to share Reiki with me in this way. I just didn't want to stray from what she prepared for because I respected her so much. So we walked from her house to this park and we were out there for a few hours. She's praying over me, attuning me to Reiki, doing all the things. And then this man comes over and because we're in a public park, and he's like, "What are you all doing?" And he sees that the papers say Reiki, and he's like, "Oh, do you want to practice on me?" And the woman is like, "Oh, the universe always sends you exactly what you need when you need it." So he lays down in the grass, and I'm essentially doing what she just taught me to do. And I asked her if I could talk because I was getting all this information about his wife and daughter. And usually Reiki is a silent practice. You don't talk. It's just like channeling the energy. So she's like, of course. So I started telling him what his body was telling me, because that's how I see my readings. Like I'm telling you what your body's telling me. And then by the time I got to the top of his head, because I started at the soles of his feet, and I still do my sessions this way to this day, from the bottom of the feet to the top of the head. Um, I had all this whole story I had shared with him about his wife and daughter, and he was silent the entire time. So when we're done, he's like, "Oh, you're exactly right. How do you know all of that?" And I told him I have no idea because I've never done that in my life until right now, So I didn't even know that clairtangent was a thing. I didn't know the word. And in the early years of seeing clients, I would say it's like Reiki, but I'm talking. That's how I would
I
describe it
love it.
because
I'm
I
the
didn't know how else to describe it.
I love it. Can people, just a side note, can people
Yeah.
book online with you
Yeah,
and get a
absolutely.
session with you?
Yes, because right now I'm only doing remote sessions, which sounds odd because it's touch, but I have this teddy bear. I think it's so when I do remote sessions, I use a teddy bear, and the teddy bear is like the person's body for me. I think it's just my brain's way of understanding like what is happening.
Love it.
But by request, I do in-person sessions too, but mostly they've been remote for years now, since COVID, I think, actually.
Yeah, I love it. So you guys can book with Ebony at bodywayintuition.com.
Yeah.
So I have another question for you
Yeah.
that I'm just curious, and if I'm curious, I bet a listener is too. In your beautiful bio, you refer to yourself as a survivor.
Yeah.
And I want for you as a survivor to share as much as you wish.
Yeah.
But why do you, what is the story behind the word?
Oh, goodness. It connects so much to this work and to how I understand intuition and why I've called my company Bodyway Intuition because I'm a sexual violence survivor and I repressed it for many years. And I've learned that repression is a common response to sexual violence. And so when it was like my consciousness was allowing me to acknowledge that something horrible happened to me that I had to deal with, it was all showing up through my body. I was doing yoga and I was crying after yoga classes. Like I was just releasing so much through my body. And it was just giving me all these cues and signals. It was telling me so much. And so that's kind of how I've come to understand intuition through the body because of my healing journey. That's how I healed. It was through my body. It was me, my most intelligent part of myself speaking to me through my body. And so that's how all of it like connects for me and why I talk about it through the senses and through the body.
You know what is so beautiful about that? Thank you for sharing that. But what's so
Yeah.
beautiful about that is that a lot of people who have gone through trauma, whatever type,
Hmm.
will not want to embody. They're they don't want to go into their body
Hmm.
because the trauma response, and it
Hmm.
literally is the amygdala, and there's a lot of science behind that.
Hmm.
So it's extra that you went through that and then were able to re-embody.
Yeah, I know. It's amazing. I learned that there's a term called a connatural conversation. So the mind and the body are always talking, like 24 hours a day. Our mind and body are always talking to each other. And so I was doing all these healing things. I mean, this is over years. I was depressed for 2 years. I retreated from my social circle. I mean, there were days I stayed in bed like for a very long time. Like I went, it wasn't like this pretty easy thing. And all of that was like me bringing that to life, like me dealing with all this stuff that I had held in my body for so long. Um, and I had tried yoga like probably 10 years before, and I hated it. And I was like, I'm never doing this again. But when I tried yoga this second time around, like I loved the way it put me in my body, even though it made me cry. And it was so upset, like because some part of me, whatever, it was like ready to deal with this stuff.
Yeah.
So yeah, it really is. I'm just so grateful because I was in so much prayer and meditation and crystal therapy and like all the things. And so how I've learned to understand it is that by doing all these things, these spiritual things to support myself, I created a stronger conversation between my mind and my body.
What do
It
you
was
call that again?
a connatural conversation, CONNATUARAL. Yeah. And I learned that term from Dr. Oh, what's his name? He's a like Ivy League educated
Okay,
doctor.
we'll remember it and we'll put
Yeah,
it in the
yeah. I can look it up.
notes.
The book is somewhere behind me. So I'll
I
find it.
love it. I love it. That's just speaks to the resilience of your soul.
Absolutely.
And I see that as a guiding light for people, listeners out there. Some of the hardest, most horrific things, you can actually take those and not only heal, which is a whole
Mhm.
journey in and of itself, but you can actually then strengthen and not just make lemonade, but like the whole meringue pie and all of these things that you're doing. I'm like kind of at a loss for words because that's just survivor,
It
resilient,
yeah,
resilient survivor. If I could
yeah.
edit your bio, I would input resilient survivor
Oh,
because you didn't just survive,
yeah.
you are resilient.
Thank you so much. And it's so funny that that word is coming up because I have a second book, which is actually the first book I wrote, but it's the second one that will be coming out, which is a memoir. And someone was reading my memoir and like the early parts of it where I talk about my childhood. And the person said to me, "Oh, you're such a resilient child." You know, this happened to me as an adult, but like this resilient thing is in me. It's who I am.
I
So,
love that. Yay. Okay, so here's another question. Um, she said she was an open book, so I'm going there.
yes, I
I
am.
I heard you mentioned briefly at Llewellyn Con 2025. I'm going to put the link below so you guys, I'm referencing it, but I want you guys to be able to watch Ebony Banks talk even more in depth about this at the Llewellyn Con 2025, and it'll be the link for YouTube for Llewellyn. Follow Llewellyn. But you briefly mentioned that you were raised in a religion, and I'm just like, ooh, let's go there because I was too. I was raised by reverends of the Christian faith
Whoa.
who met in seminary school, and I was
Wow.
whatever anointed to carry that torch. But here's the crazy thing, my
Mm.
father's full-blood Navajo.
Mm.
So I have a long story, but at the end of the day, I see my father as a medicine man who did it in a way that was able to appease Christianity and the white body at that time. And so that's
Mm.
kind of how I see it. So I always relate, and I know that we have a lot of people out there who came from, whether it's Christianity or whatever, no shame, no, but
Yeah.
some sort of a dogma or a dogma
Mhm.
that was a little bit difficult. Can you talk just briefly about your childhood and how your Ebony Banks writing books about intuition and touching, doing Reiki with words and all of that? Yeah.
Yes, yes. I was definitely raised in a strong Christian family. I'm African American. A lot of African Americans are, religious, just culturally. And so Christianity was my family's religion. And I went to Sunday school and all of that as a child, like for years, And the one thing I appreciate most about my Christian upbringing is that it gave me an awareness of non-physical presence. You know, like I understood that this physical world is just one aspect of reality. And so I'm grateful for that because I got that at a very young age. Like that's how I understood the things they were telling me because I was like studying it. I was like, why is Jesus he? And I was, I wasn't like agreeable with what I was learning. And so I guess I don't know, I think my healing journey and just who I am, my family is, although very religious, I also have my great grandmother read palms for a living. And this is in the Jim Crow South in the 1940s. And this is a Black woman in Tampa, Florida. And she did so well at it that she owned her home. She had a home built next door. She had a car and a driver. My mother's cousin, the oldest cousin of the cousins, who was said to be her favorite because he's the firstborn, he was the oldest. He remembers when she bought her car like in the 60s and she paid cash for it, like she did well. And so I say that to say that even though my family was religious, my great grandmother read palms for a living. And my mom remembers being in her living room and lines of people waiting to see her. So they also understood there's this other way of life.
Yeah, I absolutely love that. And it's kind of interesting because I've heard of so many people who were raised in a religion, but I like the way that you said it because of culture, and that's the what you do and that
Mhm,
part of the country, or
mhm,
that's just what you do. And
mhm,
and I love it because, as it sounds like, as a child you questioned and you were curious, and that for me is a part of your resilience. That is the
mhm,
questioning and the curiosity
mhm,
is like the motivator toward is a part of how you do
mhm.
resilience. I,
Oh,
I'm not
thank you
I'm
for
not trying to
that.
give you a read or nothing.
No,
I
thank you
just
for that. I have received that. Thank you. That's so beautiful. And
yeah,
I've always questioned when I was little, when I was like really little, I would wonder where I would be if I didn't have a body. This is what my little brain was thinking,
I love it.
because I was hearing all this stuff in church about like non-physical life. And so I was just like, trying to understand basically.
Yeah. I love that. I love that. It also brings in that idea that, as spiritual people, when we're talking to people who and we understand physical and non-physical, and we understand what intuition is, and we're getting to know more about that, or we understand, all of these beings and deities that are Reiki and energy and consciousness, that there is sometimes when we speak with people who aren't of the same mind,
Yeah.
that we might just jump over that they are
Mm.
ignoring that there is a non-reality, when really
Mm.
they may be coming from reality, or non-physical, unseen world, or whatever, that they only subscribe to the physical seen world. I kind of, doing what I do for so long, sometimes I kind of forget that. You know what I mean?
Yes, that's such a good point. And it blows me away too that I guess I probably blow people away too the way I process life, right? We're all just trying to survive. But it blows me away that people process life with like only that acknowledgement because it's only half of the whole. You
Yeah.
know, and you're missing so much. You're missing so much. We know we're spiritual beings. We're spiritual beings first. So how can you like not pay attention to all that? and
Yeah.
whatever that is for you and for your people. And, so
Yeah.
it's so wild to
Okay,
me.
back to intuition,
Yeah.
embodiment, and all of that. That we are using the physical five senses
Hmm.
for the most part. Like, my husband isn't the best at hearing, and I've got really sharp ears. I'm not the best with my sight, and he has really great sight. And no shame, no blame. We make one person when we get together, we can walk down the street, right? But it's really kind of interesting because we take a lot of those, the touch and the taste and all of that. We understand it because we live in that.
Hmm.
And then all of a sudden we have, oh, this reality of, am I intuitive? And you help us to bridge
Hmm.
that we have already been operating with like physical senses. Now we
Hmm.
can translate those into intuition and non-unseen world. Am I
Yes.
catching that right? Because that makes a perfect
Yes.
bridge.
Yes, you are. Because essentially what is it is an acknowledgement of our intuition bridges our subconscious and our conscious mind. Because intuition lives in our subconscious mind. And so all the information, the cues, and the things that we're getting, it's happening subconsciously. Once we acknowledge it and actually get the information, then it becomes conscious. So the journey, the intuitive journey is all about bridging the subconscious with the conscious because we have all this wisdom in our subconscious mind and it is expressing itself through our body in a million ways. And all we have to do is pay attention to it. And it's also, a little bit about you have to think differently too, because like touch, for example, when we feel the sun on our arms and that heat from the sun, like that's a form of touch. The energy is touching our arms. So it's like also a little bit of shifting how you think about the senses because it doesn't show up in the same way that touch does, like when you're touching a person, but it shows up through a similar process. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. So I gotta tell you, listeners, Ebony has a book coming out. And if you're seeing this in next year, she had a book coming out December 2025 called Your Intuitive Nudge. I think it's a step-by-step guide to connect with your intuition.
Yes.
So basically, a lot of what you're saying, are they going to be able to find that in the book? So it's like,
Yeah.
if they are like, oh, this tastes really good, both Claire gut is it what is the taste?
Clairgustance.
Yeah, this tastes really good, clairgustance style, like you're getting it, like,
Mhm.
this tastes good. Then you can pick up her book. It is ready for pre-order. You can go to her website, bodywayintuition.com, and her publisher is Llewellyn.
Thank
Um,
you. So the book really focuses on the clairs are in there and it really focuses on how you're being, because that's the key. That's the key. It's not about what you're doing. You don't have to do anything. You don't have to go somewhere and meditate for X amount of hours you just have to bring your awareness to yourself to get all this information. So the book is really focused on how you're being.
I love that. Mm, My mic didn't cut out. I'm just actually speechless.
Because so many people think that you have to travel to these sacred places or you have to buy these things and you have to do all these things, outside of you in order to access this. But no, all the power, all the wisdom, all the intelligence, it lives inside of you. And you just have to bring that. You just have to bring your awareness to that is already there. It's
Wow.
already there. It's like dormant, you just have to bring your awareness to that and then learn how you are communicating with you.
One of the things that leads people towards spirituality sometimes is to experience life outside of their life,
Hmm.
to go up into the stars and everything, which I'm good with.
Hmm. Yeah.
And and so we look for our intuition somewhere far, far away.
Yes.
But really, what I found is that embodying it is actually like the connector
Hmm.
The interconnector between all of that wisdom, it's here. And so it's not about
Absolutely.
up and out, it's about
Mm-mm.
going within, which I think is a very, very important part of our spiritual path, irregardless of how far along your path you are, the
Yeah.
remembering of being embodied.
Yeah.
Why is it so important to be embodied? And do you have any thoughts around how sometimes people go up and out and you're like, oh, get back in your body, you know?
Oh, why is it so important? I mean, the body is just so wise. It is so wise. It holds every memory from utero. It has the entirety of our life experience, things our brain has forgotten, like what we've repressed, painful experiences that we've repressed. Our body has not forgotten those experiences. Even though your brain might let you forget it because it was so hurtful, your body hasn't forgotten it. It's just this incredible tool. And it can do so much more for us than just help us function and use the five senses. Because I think about the five primary senses as, navigators for physical life. Like we need to eat and do these things, right? We need all
Right,
of them.
right.
But the clairsenses are the things that help us navigate non-physical life, and all of it is processed through the body. So the body is just it's incredible. I mean, we know this already about our bodies, but we don't think about it in this context, And so and the more you are in these places, because it's where all the wisdom lives, the more that you can have a greater experience to what you're experiencing outside of you. Like you have to connect with all of that in you first, because whatever drew you to whatever you're going to outside of you originates inside of you.
Oh,
you
I
know
love that.
so the
Yeah.
experience of that thing outside of you is going to be greater when you allow yourself to experience it inside of you first.
I love that you, in your bio, not only say that you are a teacher, but that you are an embodied teacher. What does
Yes.
that mean? I mean, I get an impression and I'm like, let's do this, but
Yeah.
define embodied teacher and embodiment.
To me, that just means that I've lived it. It's not something that someone just like taught me or I read in a book. Like I have actually lived everything that I'm teaching, So,
That
yeah.
to me, because
That's how I'm able to teach it, because I've lived it. If I didn't live it, how could I teach it, you know?
it's really that whole thing where the interconnectivity of you as an organism with your
Hmm.
brain and your body and your heart and
Hmm.
your spirit being able to find that balance and
Yes.
then and hearing and actually have that internal dialogue.
Yes.
I love
Yes.
it.
And it's happening all day long. I mean, just like life is communicating, to us all day long, like we're communicating to ourselves all day long, all day long.
I love it if we just listen. Is there
Just
any,
listen.
yeah, is there any last words or
Hmm.
final thing that I haven't asked or we haven't, because we've gone into some great things in the matter of 45 minutes. So is there
Yes.
anything else that you want to share with my listening audience?
Um, People to know that, the higher level intuitive experiences are something that everyone is capable of. It is not at all reserved to any kind of special person or anything like that. I just want people to know this is like a natural part of being a human being.
Thank you so much, Ebony. And thank you, listeners. This is yet another episode of Belief Being and Beyond. You can like, subscribe, share, text the show if you're getting it through the podcast. And Ebony, thank you so much for being on. It
Thank you
has
so
been a
much.
delight, and I'd love to have you on with your books about the
Yes.
memoir and talk a little bit more about that because you're just such a resilient individual. I love it. Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much.
Thank you.
Love ya. See you on the flippity flip.